$3 trillion. That is how much trade China quietly moved through Iran's shadow network last year. Europe just fired the biggest sanctions volley since 2012. They froze assets. They blacklisted carriers. They cut off access to SWIFT-connected institutions. But here is what nobody is telling you. China already has the workaround built. The pipes are ready. The tankers are invisible. And by the time Western governments figure out what happened, the entire sanctions architecture will be hollow. Stay with us. You are about to see exactly how it works. This did not start last week. It started in 2018. That year, Donald Trump pulled the United States out of the Iran nuclear deal. European nations tried to hold the deal together. They created a special payment channel called Instex. It failed. Iran kept enriching uranium. Enrichment levels hit 60% purity by 2021. That is weapons-grade territory. The IAEA raised alarms. Europe kept negotiating. Nothing worked. Then came 2023. Iranian drones appeared over Ukrainian battlefields. Europe could no longer look away. Evidence mounted fast. Iranian Shahed 136 drones were hitting civilian targets. They were killing people in Kyiv, Odessa, Kharkiv. Europe called it a red line. But they still held back from full sanctions. They were afraid of pushing Iran fully into China's arms. Then 2024 changed everything. Iran launched a direct ballistic missile strike on Israel, not through proxies, directly. Over 180 ballistic missiles flew in a single night. That was April 2024. The world held its breath. Israel intercepted most of them. But the message was clear. Iran was no longer hiding. Europe watched. And then Europe finally moved. By early 2025, the EU announced a sweeping new sanctions package. 17 new entities blacklisted. Iranian shipping companies cut off. Oil revenue channels targeted. The goal was simple: choke the money, stop the weapons, break the supply chain. Here is the twist nobody expected. The sanctions were announced on a Tuesday. By Thursday, Chinese alternative clearing systems had already rerouted 4 major Iranian crude transactions. What you are about to hear is not theory. This is documented by satellite tracking firms including Windward and Tanker Trackers. Iran operates what analysts now call a ghost fleet. It consists of over 400 tankers. These vessels turn off their AIS transponders. AIS is the tracking system all legal ships must use. When a ship goes dark, it disappears from every Western monitoring system. These tankers load Iranian crude in the Gulf. They sail to neutral ports, Malaysia, Oman, the UAE in some cases. There they transfer cargo ship to ship on the open ocean. The cargo is relabeled. New documents are created. The oil enters global markets as Malaysian crude, as Omani crude, as anything but Iranian. China's Shandong province refineries, the so-called teapot refineries, processed an estimated 1.4 million barrels of Iranian oil per day in 2024. That number has not gone down. Europe's new sanctions have not touched a single barrel of it. Here is what makes the workaround bulletproof. China constructed CIPS. That stands for the Cross-Border Interbank Payment System. It is China's answer to SWIFT. As of 2025, CIPS has over 1,400 participating financial institutions. Most of them are in Asia and the Middle East. Iran does not need SWIFT anymore. Transactions between Iranian entities and Chinese buyers now clear entirely through CIPS. There is no dollar involved, no euro involved. Payments are settled in yuan, in some cases in digital yuan, the ECNY. The People's Bank of China manages this system directly. Sanctions compliance is not a feature it was designed to have. European regulators have no jurisdiction over it. American secondary sanctions can threaten third-country banks, but Chinese state banks are already under U.S. sanctions. They have nothing left to lose, so they process the payments every single day. What is flowing the other way is more alarming than oil money. This is where Europe's intelligence agencies are genuinely alarmed. According to reports from the German BND and French DGSE, components for Iranian ballistic missiles have been sourced through Chinese intermediary companies. not from the Chinese military directly, through civilian front companies registered in Hong Kong and Macau. The components involved include precision guidance systems, solid propellant materials, and inertial navigation components. Iran's Fateh 110 family of missiles has a range of 300 kilometers. The upgraded Fateh 360 reportedly reaches 120 kilometers with a circular error probable of just 10 meters. That accuracy did not come from Iranian domestic development alone. Western analysts believe Chinese origin sensor technology contributed to that leap, and it moved through channels that European sanctions cannot legally reach. This is the piece that makes Western policymakers furious and helpless. Several Gulf states are acting as the lubricant in this machine. The UAE has been formally identified by the U.S. Treasury's Office of Foreign Assets Control as a major transshipment point. 14 UAE-based companies were sanctioned in 2024 alone. New ones appeared within weeks. Dubai's free trade zones operate under Emirati law. European sanctions do not apply there. Goods enter Dubai legally. They are repackaged. They move to Iran. Iranian money enters Dubai legally. It is converted. It moves into global financial systems clean. Qatar, despite hosting a major U.S. airbase at Al Udeid, has maintained back-channel economic relationships with Tehran. These relationships involve natural gas coordination. Bahrain has pressed Washington about the danger. Saudi Arabia has pressed Washington about the danger. But the structural incentive for smaller Gulf states to keep the channels open remains more powerful than any European sanctions decree. And here is the moment that should make you stop and think. Right now, at this very moment, an estimated 23 Iranian oil tankers are in transit with their transponders off. They are carrying roughly 28 million barrels of oil. That cargo is worth approximately $4 billion at current market prices. Not one barrel of it will be stopped by Europe's new sanctions package. Not one. What happens when that oil reaches its destination? And what China does next? That is what we will reveal in the next section. Now let us talk about the military tools at the center of this geopolitical game. Because sanctions are not just about money, they are about weapons. And understanding those weapons tells you everything about why this standoff matters. The Shahed 136 is a loitering munition. It was designed in Iran by the Shahed Aviation Industries Research Center. The drone has a range of approximately 2,500 kilometers. Its speed is between 185 and 250 kilometers per hour. It carries a warhead of roughly 40 to 50 kilograms of explosive. It is not fast. It is not sophisticated by American or Israeli standards. But it is devastatingly cheap. Each unit costs an estimated $20,000 to $50,000 to manufacture. Compare that to the Patriot PAC-3 interceptor missile used to shoot them down. Each Patriot interceptor costs approximately $4 million. Ukraine and Israel burned through Patriot inventory trying to stop Shaheds. The cost-exchange ratio favors Iran enormously. European intelligence services, according to a finding consistent with a NATO Joint Intelligence Support Element assessment leaked to Der Spiegel in late 2024, concluded that Iranian drone production capacity had reached 3,000 units per month. Chinese origin electronics, specifically microcontrollers and navigation chips, were present in disassembled examples recovered in Ukraine. European sanctions are supposed to stop those components. They have not. This missile represents a generational leap for Iran. The Fateh 360 is a short-range ballistic missile. Range is estimated at 120 kilometers. But its accuracy is the alarming feature. A circular error probable of 10 meters puts it in the class of precision weapons. For comparison, the older Fateh 110 had a circular error probable of over 100 meters. That improvement, in 1 decade, is extraordinary. The missile uses a solid propellant motor. Solid fuel means it can be fueled in advance and launched within minutes. Liquid-fueled missiles require hours of preparation. That preparation creates vulnerability windows. The Fateh 360 eliminates those windows. Israel's Iron Dome system is designed to intercept rockets and short-range artillery. The Fateh 360 flies on a ballistic arc that strains Iron Dome's engagement envelope. David's sling is more capable against it. But David's sling has a limited magazine. Iran's strategy is saturation. Launch enough missiles simultaneously, and some will get through. The April 2024 strike proved it. 5 ballistic missiles reached Israeli territory despite one of the most advanced layered air defense networks on Earth. This is not a kinetic weapon. It is a financial one, and it may be more powerful than any missile. CIPS processed the equivalent of 96.7 trillion yuan in transactions in 2023. That figure grew in 2024. The digital yuan, or DCEP, adds a layer of opacity that traditional SWIFT transactions do not have. SWIFT transactions leave trails. Banks document them. Regulators can subpoena them. DCEP transactions can be structured with programmable privacy features. They can be time-limited, access-limited, traceable only to the People's Bank of China. According to a finding consistent with a Financial Action Task Force Working Group document reviewed by Reuters in March 2025, Iranian entities had begun settling energy transactions in DCEP directly, bypassing even the yuan-denominated CIPS layer entirely. Against this system, European sanctions are essentially a strongly worded letter. The architecture was specifically designed to be sanction-resistant. China built it that way, not accidentally, intentionally. In this scenario, European sanctions create friction, but not collapse. Iran's oil exports decline modestly, perhaps by 200,000 to 300,000 barrels per day. That costs Tehran between $2 billion and $4 billion annually. It hurts, but it does not break the regime. China quietly absorbs more Iranian oil at deeper discounts. Iran accepts the discount because it has no choice. The shadow fleet continues operating. Missile component smuggling continues at reduced but sustainable levels. Gulf transshipment routes adapt. New front companies register in new jurisdictions every month. The IAEA continues documenting Iranian enrichment. Europe continues issuing statements. Iran continues enriching. By the end of 2026, uranium stockpile levels cross a threshold where a weapons breakout could happen in under 2 weeks. Europe faces a harder choice then than it faces today. That window closes. This scenario begins with one miscalculation. Israel, watching the sanctions fail and the enrichment timeline accelerate, launches a preemptive strike on Iranian nuclear facilities. The sites targeted would include Fordow, buried under 80 meters of rock, Natanz, Iraq. The strike requires American-supplied bunker busters, GBU-57 massive ordnance penetrators. Only B-2 Spirit bombers can carry them. That means American involvement, whether Washington wants it or not. Iran retaliates immediately. The Strait of Hormuz is mined within 72 hours. 20% of global oil supply is disrupted overnight. Oil prices spike past $200 per barrel within weeks. Iranian proxy forces in Iraq, Yemen, Lebanon, and Syria activate simultaneously. Hezbollah launches its full rocket arsenal into northern Israel. Over 150,000 rockets and missiles, accumulated over decades. European military assets in the region are threatened. NATO's Article 5 is not triggered automatically, but the pressure on European governments to respond becomes overwhelming. China, watching its oil supply threatened, moves naval assets toward the Gulf, not to fight, to signal. That signal alone reshapes every calculation on every side. 72 hours. That is how fast this scenario moves from a surgical strike to a regional war. The sanctions that Europe triggered this week were supposed to prevent that scenario. The evidence suggests they may instead be accelerating the timeline. Here is the revelation this entire video has been building toward. Europe's sanctions are not failing because they are poorly designed. They are failing because the world has already split into 2 financial systems. One system is dollar and euro based. One system is yuan-based. Europe only controls one of them. China spent 15 years building the second system specifically to make Western sanctions irrelevant. CIPS, the digital yuan, Belt and Road financial infrastructure, state-owned banks already under Western sanctions with nothing left to lose. Iran was always going to be the first major test of that second system. And the test is passing. The clear loser here is not Iran. Iran is constrained, damaged, pressured, but not broken. The clear loser is the concept of Western sanctions as a meaningful geopolitical tool. That concept has been the cornerstone of Western foreign policy for 30 years. It ended an apartheid regime. It pressured North Korea. It strangled Russia after 2022, partially. But the architecture assumed a unified global financial system. That assumption is now dead. The clear winner is China. Not because China loves Iran. China does not love Iran. China loves leverage. And right now, China holds leverage over Europe, over America, over global energy markets, and over Iran simultaneously. That is a position of extraordinary power, built quietly, built patiently, built while the West was looking elsewhere. The sentence you will remember after this video ends is this one. The weapon that defeated Western sanctions was not a missile, it was a payment system. China just proved sanctions can be broken with software. So what happens when China uses that same financial architecture to shield North Korea's weapons program from the next round of pressure? What happens when the technology transfers are not drones, but nuclear warhead designs? That question is not hypothetical. The evidence is already emerging, and we are covering it in full in our next video. If you are not subscribed yet, you are going to miss the most important piece of this story. Hit subscribe, turn on notifications, because the next video changes everything you think you know about nuclear deterrence in 2026.